Assalamu alaikum. Welcome again to another episode of Pips Talks. I am Ammara Zaheer, and today we will be talking about Semiquincentennial of United States. As United States celebrated its 250th anniversary, this milestone is more than just a celebration. It is an opportunity for the world to reflect on the ideals of democracy, constitutional governance, and how American ideals today also shape the world. In today's episode, we will also talk about the 1776 Declaration of Independence and its the ideals envisioned in that declaration and how those ideals reflect on the current relationship between United States and Pakistan. So today, for this insightful discussion, we have with us Mohammed Amir Rana, who is a political economy and a security expert. I welcome you, sir, on the show. It
Thank you,
has been a long
Amara.
while, sir.
Yeah, so I hope you would be well during that time.
Yes, sir. I was wishing you the same as well. So let us begin with our questions. First of all, we'll talk about the 250th anniversary of the United States, as I have already mentioned. So, how do you believe that, sir, that the ideals envisioned in the 1776 Declaration of Independence are being upheld by the United States of today?
Yeah, thank you, Amara, for initiating this very important debate because it's very close to the challenges the many developing countries are facing around the world, including Pakistan. And when the populist movement is on its rise and democracies are under stress, and of course the all the value systems, the institutions which mainly come out from these democratic processes, they are under stress as well. So this is very important question, though I personally am not a student of the American political history, and what I collected is mostly the different articles or the perspectives being shared on American history, the 250 years of his journey from a first nation in the world which come up with the constitutional supremacy and the consensus-based democracy. So this it was very important uh, even at that time, and I think this is more important not to look in the US perspective. Of course, there is a debate is going on that what the US gained, what lost during last 250 years. But for us, I think is also very important that even the centuries plus, the US is still struggling and trying to find the path for the genuine democracy and the civilian supremacy and the constitutional supremacy. So this is very important. That's mean that the human societies, they are still learning from their mistakes and from its experiences. So this Pakistan is also very interesting case. We are a very young nation of 75-year-old, and Pakistan was basically established as nation state, which is, of course, through a democratic process.
So let us capitalize on our previous question. So internationally, critics from all over the world argue that on one hand, United States champions democratic rights, democratic ideals, but on the other hand,
Yeah.
it has seen to support the regimes who have been authoritarian when it came to
Mhm.
American strategic interests. So how do you justify this display of ironic character? And how does this affect America's face, where it champions the democratic rights and advocates democratic rights all over the world? So, what does this say about American exceptionalism, which they champion a lot?
Yeah, exceptionalism is, I think, is a very important term being conceived and applied very selectively as well. And of course, it can be applied on the US as well, as is mainly came from the US academics. Right. So there is a debate in the US, as I had mentioned, that what they have achieved and what from where these contradictions are coming. That one side they stress on the freedom and rule of law and equality for all. So these are the core values of of the American experiment, if we may say that. And what they practice globally is sometimes seems uh, very different what they believe. But if you look at, this is basically their strategic or the geopolitical paradigm, which falls in the category of the realism, or even is more broadly in the political economy context, is called the real politics. So this is the framework is basically emerged from their own experiences. If they wouldn't have experiences, this very paradoxical trends or the struggle, the suffering, the transformation, I think the US might not been able to come up with this realism framework. So this realism is different for the world and its relations with the nations. And if you look at on the societal level, the uh, individuals within the US society, they also interact with it, the similar terms uh, of realism. Even their corporate culture is based on the similar kind of the equations. So it's easy for me to understand, to perceive that how it works in the geopolitical context and what is the political economy of the US uh, foreign policy. But sometimes it give me feel that this happening, the similar kind of the relations is working or functioning well within the US society. And I don't see a huge or the major contradiction in their characters. But one important thing, that the US still among the nations which are experimenting, where there is a space for the debate despite the the second term of the President Trump, Trump point two. So, despite all these things, repression and uh, imposed by the Trump on, especially on academia or on the campuses, so the debate is still going on. Society is still debating that where the how is image, the society, its policies are working and where these are going wrong. So this is the freedom still persisting and prevailing within the US society. I think this is the major strand. It may be a very delicate movement, the weak movement in the US history of 250 years, where democracy is under stress, but at least they got the space for discussion, the freedom to discuss these things. So this is, in my view, very important, which many nations in the world lacks that level of the tolerance, which still the core of the US society and I may say the intelligentsia.
So yes, what I gathered from your previous answer is that domestically, on the domestic level, they still uphold the ideals envisioned in their
Yeah.
1776 constitution, but on the international level, their ideals are being challenged by the real politic.
Yeah, or
Uh,
pragmatism, you
exactly,
may
sir.
call. Yeah.
So that is very justifiable. So now let's talk about Pakistan and US's relation. Let us talk about Pakistan's constitutional journey, and it is has often revolved around parliamentary supremacy and judicial independence, provincial autonomy, and civilian governance.
Mm.
So, to what extent has American constitutional system, influenced the Pakistani constitutional system or Pakistani thought all over, or in the overall scenario?
Yeah, I think not in the in that perspective, the US remain inspiration for elite, because we were the colony of the British Empire, once the empire, and all the political or the governance institution we had inherited. These are basically the colonial British colonial structures, and which we are still trying to follow, and even Pakistan Penal Code to our the core element within our constitution or the democratic institutions are basically borrowed or influenced by the British uh, colonial time. So this is, I think, a very different equation. But U.S. always remain inspiration for the Pakistani elite, and this may not be because of its uh, this democratic system, how it's working, and we have never tried to learn or to inspire or to adopt the U.S. Democratic institutional structure. Rather, it's inspire us as to how US become the superpower in the world and how is the power dynamics works there. So it always inspire. And the second, of course, the Pakistani strategic realism is basically we have borrowed certain elements or the certain parts from the US experience. So this is very important in that context. And our relationship remain very strategic and geopolitical in its nature. So this was the most functional part, most part of our history of bilateral relations. So this influenced much. And there was a very brief time when we had extensive engagement with the US, which was mainly the civilian-led engagement. Mostly it remained confined to strategic security relationship and is flourished during the times of the military dictators. So this is the first time it's happening in the Trump 0.20 tenure that there is a civilian phase in Pakistan. Uh, which is somehow having the same cordial relationship which the US Pakistan had during Ayub era or during General Zia, or even you can mention the General Musharraf's final years. So, this is, I think, very important uh, is happening. And even now the more appreciation come for the CDF Sayyid Asim Munir rather for our civilian leadership. This means our security relations are so deep and which is still cultivating some results what the US wants from Pakistan and what Pakistan wants from the US, whether this is the West Asia, Iran, or Afghanistan, Central Asia, or even we can consider China in that context as well. So this is, I think, is more pragmatic, practical relationship we have got, despite having many ups and downs in our relationships. And this is the very important time when we are having another very pleasant phase of bilateral relations in our history.
So, sir, during the alliances like C2 and CENTO, Pakistan became an important strategic ally for United States, and since then, our military assistance to United States have been very of paramount importance for United States. And we've talked also about the American democratic ideals that have been domestically very much pertinent and intact. So, why Pakistan became a hard state and Pakistan was not able to capitalize, even in the United States, the establishment is very uh, of paramount importance. And in Pakistan, it is also of very paramount importance. But why Pakistan became a hard state and not the United States?
Yeah, this is, I think, very important question, Amhara. That, as I mentioned, that mostly our power elite and establishment, security establishment rather, is inspired by uh, the U.S. Security infrastructure, and they got training there. They follow their strategic template, whether it's counterterrorism or the regional engagement or whatever. So this case apart. So in other areas, we have other source of inspiration. For Pakistan as an ideological state, we draw inspiration from ideological sources and see, and we don't have any good ideological model which somehow to be compatible with the existing democratic norms in this world. Uh, Maybe there are a few countries Muslim countries which have democracy, like Turkey, Indonesia, and Malaysia as well, of course, Bangladesh. But these never been remain inspiration, and as their experience, democratic experience, even is not um, as good as Pakistan conceive the more authoritarian model as and source of inspiration, like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and we also got a very good relation with China and their CPC model also inspires us. So we have the different inspiration for the security. Of course, the US on top, but follow drawing inspiration for the political structures, infrastructure in the country. We have very divergent sources. So I think this is how the things are evolving here, and ultimately the Pakistan thought maybe the more authoritarian structure can work better to address this internal problem, fixing governance issue, the political crisis in the country, and we are becoming harder and harder. Uh, and I'm in our approaches, but I'm not sure that this is creating any coherence within the society, and coherence means a strength. Maybe we are missing right now that, but it's up to you how to proceed this debate, Amara.
My last question to you, sir, will be that observers have often described Pakistan and US's relation as a series of strategic highs and lows, where there have been long periods of strategic disappointment or disappointing relationship between the two countries. Why do you think is it so?
Uh, I have a different take on this. I think the Pakistan US go to their relationship in a very pragmatic domain. So they know each other compulsions, and during last 75 years, we saw several ups and downs in our relationship, but it helped us to identify our boundaries, and which are, I think, very pragmatic, and they know that what are our limits at where we can cooperate and where we can't. So this is most pragmatic relationship we have got with the US, and this is not the case with uh, the Pakistan's other partners, especially with China, which is, of course, we always talk about the our friendship is deeper than the ocean, higher than the mountains, whatever we call it. But is this is always remain in a very uh, idealistic domain. It's not a very pragmatic approach, but we know about each other. So far, Pakistan and US interests converge in West Asia and maybe in Afghanistan and some other geopolitical domains. Well, these relationships are working, and we can't anticipate that this relationship will um, cemented our partnership for the longer term, because we are two different nation with different completely opposite credentials, from economic profile to or the geography and our strategic priorities. Sometime our priorities match and sometime doesn't. When our priorities match, we develop partnerships as we have developed now, and sometime doesn't, so didn't, so we don't. So this is, I think, a very pragmatic relationship we have got with the US.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And from the deliberations you have made in the last question, it is safe to say that our relationship is a relationship of convenience rather than an idealistic relationship. So, thank you so much, sir, again for your time. And I'll see you again in another video. Until then, like, share, and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, Mara, for having me in this discussion.
Thank you, sir.